Hello, welcome to the Totally TA podcast. I'm Tom Brown. Today is a very special episode for us as it's our first ever episode. I'm your host, so buckle up and let's get stuck in to our very first guest. I'm really excited to be joined by Liam Haghighat today. Liam is I've mispronounced your name, haven't I?
That's all right.
Hang on, let me do that again. Really excited to be joined by Liam Haghighat today. I hope I pronounced your surname right this time, Liam. Liam is a solo recruiter who runs a fractional service, and he also runs a coaching business for other solo recruiters. Today, we're going to be talking all things LinkedIn and how to leverage this glorious platform that we all love for looking for work within talent acquisition. Before we dive into things, Liam, would you like to give us a bit of an intro?
Yeah, no problem at all. Yeah, first of all, you did a good job pronouncing the surname there. To be honest, nobody can usually pronounce it. But yeah, quick intro. So my name is Liam, based in the Northeast. You can probably tell by the Geordie accent. And I've been in recruitment for over 10 years. I did sort of 7.5 years in the world of agency. I worked for a pretty well-known agency and then transitioned to internal TA. I worked for a few sort of cool tech companies right across a range of areas like SaaS, legal tech, consultancy, etc. before setting up my own sort of solo consulting business middle of last year, officially launching Your Remote Tech Recruit October, November last year. So yeah, it's been a bit of a crazy 12 months, to be honest. Yeah, being a business owner is not easy. I'm sure a lot of people can attest to that. But yeah, excited to have a conversation and obviously talk about LinkedIn and all things TA.
But thanks, Liam. Let's start with the basics. So if you had to sum it up in one sentence, what do you think is the biggest mistake that people are making on LinkedIn when they're looking for work?
It might sound weird, but just applying for jobs and relying on that as your only stream of success. So I think, first of all, before anyone gets offended, I totally appreciate that the market right now is tough for TA. I was in this position towards the end of 2022, early 2023, when I got laid off several times, and I was in the same boat that a lot of people are in right now, applying for jobs, submitting applications on LinkedIn, sitting back and hoping that somebody will offer me an interview. But I do think that the way the market is right now, the way that adverts are right now, to be honest, I'm not really seeing much return on investment when it comes to posting adverts as a recruiter. I know a lot of people are in a similar boat. And I think that right now, relying on just applying for a job and kind of hoping someone contacts you it's not the most effective way, I think, to act as a job seeker. Yeah, I was speaking to a head of people a couple of weeks ago, and she mentioned that they're recruiting for 2 talent partners currently in the UK. But basically, she said that they're not going to put an advert out there because essentially they're worried that, number one, that their stretch team won't be able to basically get back to the number of applicants they'll probably receive. And number two, that because they won't get back to loads of applicants, that the candidate experience will be great. They're concerned they'll get basically criticized on LinkedIn for not getting back to applicants. So I think what they're doing instead is adopting more of a kind of headhunt approach where they're just targeting recruiters who are open to work. So yeah, I think for me, just relying on that one channel right now is risky. And I think you need to be a bit more proactive and maybe adopt more of sounds a bit weird, but a business development style approach to your job search.
I think I can resonate with a lot of that as well, especially with the sort of the redundancy side. So obviously you had a bit of bad luck a couple of years ago when you were laid off. So how did you handle that journey to where you are now?
I got laid off 3 times in the space of 8-9 months. Yeah, so it was pretty rough, to be honest. I think the first time was genuinely out of the blue. I wasn't expecting it at all. It was pretty hard to take. I felt rejected. I think there was a lot of kind of I wouldn't say dark time, because I think that's maybe going too far down that route, but it wasn't great. I love the company and I was devastated when the role ended. And then after that, the second and third time, I guess it got easier every time because you get used to it, which is weird. My journey, to be honest, I struggle with it. Yeah, it was hard. I've always been to TA. I was in one business for 7.5 years. I've always been very stable. I've always been somebody who been approached for jobs as opposed to applying. So I've never really had that job seeker experience apart from after university when I was trying to get a paralegal job after I did a law degree. essentially my journey was one of coming to terms with it and just getting used to the fact that I'm not going to get a job anytime soon, which kind of led me to start my own business. Yeah, and that was I think the third time, the third layoff really was that sort of trigger moment where I thought I can't do this anymore. I need to make a change, do something different, stop relying on just firing applications out there. And I think that journey from believing that my network will help me to actually it won't, because a lot of them are in the same position as me. So I need to then do something differently. That was what led me to start my own solo business.
I'm hearing that quite a lot from TA people who are actively looking for work, who have been made redundant, contracts coming to an end. The fact that up until a couple of years ago, to get their next job, they were used to people in their network headhunting them or using their network to find the next role. I've certainly found in the last few months that kind of strategy isn't working anymore. So no, I've heard that a lot. So as a permanent talent acquisition partner, what advice would you give them to stand out on LinkedIn to make sure that when companies are headhunting, out of the hundreds of TA people there are out there, how do they stand up to make sure that they are the ones to be headhunted?
Yeah, don't get me wrong. What I'm suggesting isn't a magic wand. I do want to make that point because the market is tough.
Yeah, cool.
Economically, there's a lot of factors involved. There's obviously an enormous pool of talent in the talent space who are still looking for a job. Yeah, so naturally the competition is going to be much higher. But what I do think is I've seen a few people adopt this approach where, for example, I think back to when I graduated from university, and I was a law graduate. In the Northeast, you've got Newcastle, Northumbria, Durham, you've got Sunderland, you've got a number of universities in a small area firing out graduates every single year. So the competition for a job is high. I remember physically posting my CV with a handwritten letter to over 100 law firms in the region. And I actually got about 11, 12 interviews off the back of that. Yeah. And a lot of that was because people were genuinely quite surprised. I hadn't just filled an application form in, I'd done something a little bit different, and it worked. I actually got a paralegal role off the back of that. Yeah. So my point is, I'm thinking about that sort of networking style, but online. So, for example, if you're a fintech recruiter, let's say, and you've been laid off by a fintech startup, you've got two options. You've got option one, where you can just apply for a bunch of jobs on LinkedIn and just hope somebody contacts you, or you can adopt more of a BD approach. And when I say BD approach, pull up a list of 100 fintech companies in your area and reach out to the founder, the head of people, the head of talent, and essentially sell yourself into that company, pitch yourself to that company. And it's a different approach. Not everyone's comfortable with that. It does involve a bit of marketing, sales, etc. And I do appreciate if you are, I'm saying this from someone who worked in agency, so I've come from a business development background. If you are a lifelong internal recruiter and you've never done any form of BD before, it might seem a bit unnatural. A good friend of mine recently, for example, he worked for a SaaS company, and he was informed that his role is going to be made redundant. So what he did was he reached out to everybody in the portfolio of companies that SaaS company's main investor managed, and basically pitched himself into those companies, got an offer, and he's starting a new role. So it does work. It can work. It's a little bit different. And I think LinkedIn comes into that, because for me, LinkedIn has replaced that face-to-face networking. So rather than going up to people, knocking on doors in offices or meeting people at events, LinkedIn is this massive network where you can just speak to people and pitch yourself. So it could be optimizing your profile, which I'll touch on in a second. It could be stuff like sending Loom videos, LinkedIn voice notes, but proactively reaching out to people who you think would be a good fit for your skill set and combining that with posting content, etc. For me personally, is a much better approach than just sitting there and waiting for someone to come back to you. Because in reality, a lot of TA teams, and I'm not defending the candidate experience part of it for the record, but a lot of TA teams are stretched. Yeah. And if you think about it, if you've got an advert, I saw someone the other day on LinkedIn say that they posted an advert for a TA partner role. They got 400 applications in 3 days, right? No one's going to sit and review 400 applications and get back to everyone one by one. I wish they would, but they're not going to. So if you're number 365 of that 400, you're probably not going to get contacted, even though your profile might be absolutely perfect for that role. Adopting a different approach, maybe thinking outside the box, for me personally, and using LinkedIn for that, is a good alternative if you want to do that.
The business development is a scary word, and business development from my side of things is probably the reason why I years ago made the quick pivot from agency to internal. And I know there are a lot of others out there who are the same. BD is a scary word, but it's an important thing to do to stand out. But what about sort of things like making sure that your LinkedIn profile stands out above the rest? What should our LinkedIn profile look like? Is there like a one size fits all to optimize a profile?
To an extent, there are guidelines you can follow. Everyone's different. There's gurus out there that will sell you LinkedIn optimization services where they just basically do some stuff on Canva for you. I do think that your LinkedIn profile, though, it should almost be like an elevator pitch, a 24/7 sales and marketing rep for you. It ties into the whole personal branding chat, which is obviously talked about to death on LinkedIn. But optimizing your profile to me means a prospect. So let's say, for example, you're an SDR and you're selling some software. Your profile should tell your prospect exactly what you offer and how it can help their specific problem. If you're a job seeker, if you're looking for a job, your profile should contain a list of achievements, highlights. It should basically tell your potential employers exactly what you've done and how you can add value to their business. So it's almost like an expanded CV or resume. It should include, content. For example, you should be posting content which talks about your achievements. For example, if you, in your previous TA role, let's say you led a DE&I strategy. If I'm that person, I'm posting some content talking about that strategy, maybe do a video about it, explaining how I could do that in another business, and then using that content to leverage engagement and then trying to engage with the people who engage with that content. So starting conversations off the back of, a case study in this case, or for example, posting regular content about the TA market, about kind of trends in recruitment, AI, interviewing, diversity, etc. But just, almost bringing your profile to life. That's what I would describe as optimizing as a job seeker. Yeah? And I think that I go into a lot of recruiter profiles. My role as a coach does involve, working with some founders who've, decided to set up a recruitment business like I did because they got laid off, for example. And I am still quite surprised how many recruiters have terrible LinkedIn profiles. Yeah, because we work in recruitment, so you would assume that we would have amazing profiles. But to be honest with you, a lot don't. I go into a lot of profiles and the job experience, the work experience part isn't filled out properly. They've got no recommendations on their profile. If you don't have any recommendations, please get some. Testimonials are hugely important. They're basically references, especially if you're looking for a job. People will check that. Your LinkedIn profile photo, is it you in a bar with your friends in Ibiza holding a cocktail? Because if it is, that's probably not the best photo to have, really. Does your banner highlight what you can do? For example, does it say FinTech Recruiter, highlight your experience? If it doesn't, then it should. Does it have contact information on there? You need to make your profile essentially just amplify what you can do, And there's loads of ways you can do it. You can use ChatGPT if you want. I wouldn't advise it. But I think optimizing your profile is, especially if you're looking for a role, is massively important.
You've certainly helped me with making my LinkedIn profile stand out a little bit more in the last sort of couple of months. And I know it's garish, pink and yellow. I've updated my banner. Canva is an amazing tool that I've used. I think your LinkedIn brand is also quite zesty. You certainly stand out. With regards to content and posting, something that, up until, again, very recently, I haven't done was post much. How many times, I know I'll get this question, how many times a week do you think people should be posting to make them stand out? Is there a hard and fast rule on numbers of posts?
It depends. I post 5 days a week. That's my thing. What I would say about content is a lot of people are uncomfortable posting content. My argument is if I can do it, then anyone can. I don't have a personal Instagram or Facebook profile. I don't really use social media. I'm not somebody who was all over social media all the time posting stuff. But I decided last year that I wanted to really, and I've used LinkedIn for 10 years, but I wanted to really use it properly last year and use it for business development to showcase what I can do. And I made a conscious effort. And if you look at my posts from a year ago, they're absolutely awful. They're terrible. But I really fought through that, and the imposter syndrome that was telling me to please stop posting awful content eventually subsided. Thankfully, I think that A good place to start, don't go crazy. I think a couple of times a week, 2 times a week, a Tuesday and a Thursday, for example, works. But I think just getting into that habit of posting content that's insightful, that adds value, and being comfortable putting yourself out there. That is where I would start. And I think after that, if you want to post 5 days a week like me, you can. I just do that now because I'm comfortable doing it, but I didn't used to. I used to do 3 times a week, I think, for the first 6 months. It was a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I just think it's about ultimately consistency and being comfortable. There's no point posting content, video content, for example, if you don't like the way you look on video. You need to get used to that and get comfortable with it. Otherwise, it won't come across as very natural. And in terms of just posting content in general, just do it consistently and just make sure it actually adds value. Yeah, I think that's what I would say. Yeah, don't worry too much about how often you post. Worry more about what you're actually posting, and then how often you post will just naturally happen anyway because you'll have loads of ideas. That's how I view it. But again, LinkedIn's full of people who will tell you otherwise, and there's loads of gurus out there who tell you to post every single day at 9 a.m. or post 7 days a week and whatever. And I'll be honest with you, I don't really think that that's required. But again, that's just my opinion.
I've started to post a lot more on LinkedIn, and I often, at the start I did, but not now, but I often get upset if I put a post on that I've thought about and I think's funny. My sense of humor isn't exactly normal, and I only get 1 or 2 likes. I get quite offended about that. But should we be worrying about likes, or is there a bigger picture when it comes to engagement?
To an extent, don't get me wrong, you want people to engage with your content. Likes, that's just engagement. That's someone liking a post or comments, etc. That is just engagement. So I do think I think people who say that engagement doesn't matter at all, I don't agree with that. I think social media, ultimately, it's no different to writing a newspaper article. If nobody reads it, then that's not good. So you want engagement. It's who engages with it that's my thing. So for example, if you're a recruiter and you, let's say, for example, you specialize in the Salesforce market, right? And you post content all the time and you get 100 likes a day, but everybody who likes your content is a joiner or a plumber, right? That's fantastic, but none of those people are relevant to what you do. So it's pointless engagement. And it's finding the happy medium. Like with me personally, I monitor the audience of if you go onto your LinkedIn profile and check your posts, you can monitor the audience, so who views the content. Yeah. And if you look at my stuff, I do 2 things. So I recruit for tech companies and I provide a one-to-one sort of coaching service for recruiters. And if you look at my audience, I did a post about this recently. My audience consists of recruitment founders, tech founders, software engineers, and recruiters. So everyone who basically engages with my content is relevant to what I talk about, which is really good. Yeah, that's what you want. Yeah. So if I get 6 likes, I'm not really that bothered because I get a lot of DMs about my content from people. So someone might message me and say, I saw you posted this about your course, for example. Can we book a meeting to talk about it? Or I've had companies reach out to me and ask to work together because I've posted content that's relatable to what they do. So engagement is important. I think that if you have no followers, no likes, no comments at all, that's not a good thing. But it's about who engages that's the most important. If you're getting loads of meetings booked off your content, but you're only getting 5 likes, that's great, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good conversion rate. But if that is the case, you should be trying to get more of that good engagement. So that's my view now. It's important, but it just needs to be with the right people.
Now, and on the other side of things, I've seen people on LinkedIn get 70 to 100 likes on posts where I think, that's actually quite a boring War and Peace read. And they get 70 to 100 likes in the first 30 minutes posted at 7:30 in the morning. So what exactly is a LinkedIn pod?
Open a can of worms here. I joke about this quite a lot in my content, engagement pods. And basically what an engagement pod is, you're part of a group. So let's say, for example, you're part of a WhatsApp group, and everybody in that WhatsApp group posts a link to their LinkedIn content and says, by the way, can everyone like this post? I've seen these groups. I know a lot of people who are part of groups like that. They could be on Slack, there's WhatsApp, there's Telegram, similar sort of thing. There's even school communities where that happens. And it's basically, it's often a post accompanied by, let's all win together. Can everyone like this content? And within 10, 15 minutes of that post going live, 30 people all commenting similar things on that post. Yeah. That for me is an engagement point. Now, don't get me wrong. there's nothing wrong with a lot of people that are engaging with your content, right? So if I post some content and all of my friends engage with it, that's cool. But if I then leverage that engagement to try to justify someone spending money on my service, to me, when it becomes a problem, because it's not authentic. That isn't, they're not your customers. They're not people who've actually bought your service. And you're using that engagement and saying, look at all these people who like my service. Can you give me some money, please? And I'll give you the service. For me, that's a bit, and I see that happen all the time on LinkedIn. That's for me when an engagement pod becomes a problem. I have no issue whatsoever with, because I think it's important to say this. If people and you like each other's stuff, there are people who I always engage with and they engage back with me.
Yeah.
Because we like each other's content. That's totally cool. I never ever for example, if we engage with each other's content, I don't leverage that to
of course,
sale. And that's for me when it becomes the LinkedIn's full of them. It's crazy. You know who you are.
Keeping the conversation about the controversial side of LinkedIn, I've seen a few of your copy and paste posts, which are quite lighthearted. But why do you think people are posting this sort of thing?
I don't know. A lot of it is engagement. It's a social media curse. I think everyone talks about kind of vanity metrics. People who they just want impressions and likes and comments, so they just post absolute nonsense. What they do is they search for content that's got a lot of engagement, and then they just post the same thing. I call it out because, to be honest, I do those posts now just for a bit of lighthearted entertainment for myself, really, because the comments are always really funny, and I just have a naturally weird sense of humor. People just do it it's just engagement. I don't see any value personally in it because, again, I don't really care how many people engage with my content if it results in absolutely zero traction. So my coaching business, for example, is 100% inbound from LinkedIn. Obviously, for my fractional recruitment business, that is a lot of outreach, BD, etc. For my coaching, that is all inbound. So all of my coaching clients I've worked with and people who've bought my program, they've all done it off the back of my content. So that is working for me in that sense. On the flip side, I don't really care if I was getting, for example, 100,000 impressions on a post, but zero inbound leads or sales calls booked, then for me, that's a waste of time. So the reason people do it is to get engagement. It does get them engagement, to be fair. And there are several accounts who are quite well known for, recycling these terrible copy and paste posts. So all I'm doing is just highlighting it really, because I hope, ideally, I think LinkedIn should stop it. There should be some way for me in terms of software where if you literally post something that's identical to another post, that should be stopped, I think.
Yeah, sort of AI algorithm. This is a copy paste. Send it to Liam so he can parody it.
Exactly. But I mean, look, I guess it's probably never going to stop yet, because ultimately it does, at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, it does get engagement to those people who do it. Yeah. And if that's all you're interested in, you just want to get likes and shares and follows, then why not?
Final question about LinkedIn, Liam. What do you think the future looks like for the platform? And do you think something will come along that is better than LinkedIn that will kill it?
Good question. LinkedIn's a funny one. It's definitely changed in the last 12 months. Video content now is massive. Obviously on the mobile app now, there's a video screen similar to TikTok, like a rolling feed. So that's huge. My video stuff gets a lot more reach than my text-based posts. So I think video content is definitely going to be a massive part of the future, the near future anyway. AI as well. LinkedIn loves AI. It's brought in loads of these annoying AI features like auto comments and weird AI draft messages in your DMs, which they're not great quality. But the future, I'm not sure, because reach has been up and down the last 12 months. The algorithm is a weird thing. I don't really understand it even now. I've researched it. I've looked into it. It seems to always change. So I think the future of LinkedIn, to be honest, is in a fluid state. I think it could go one of multiple ways. But I do think that video in particular is a massive part of it. So I think that anyone who isn't posting video content now, I do think it should be made to be a major part of your strategy, because it is definitely, it's where LinkedIn wants the platform to go, clearly. And I've noticed an increase in reach from my video posts. So it's definitely worth exploring if you want already.
The last question that I'm probably going to be asking all of the guests in this season, just about TA in general. So as we've discussed, the last couple of years have been tough, but before that it was great. How do you think the industry can, get together and get out of this feast or famine cycle?
Good question. It's been a crazy few years. I remember just after COVID when TA was just mental, 6-figure salaries for like resources. It was nuts. I remember one company who they had a headcount of 70, 75 people, but they had 9 or 10 TA. So you're thinking that just doesn't add up. And I think a lot of it comes down to bad strategy from the companies themselves. So for example, if you have a couple of roles, let's say 3 engineering positions and 2 sales roles, rather than hiring 2 TA partners to service those requirements, use a fractional TA partner or use an agency. Be smarter around your hiring and only bring in TA when, on a full-time basis, when there's a clear strategy to scale. So if you're a business who are looking to go from, let's say, 100 to 1,000 in 3 years, for example, feel free to bulk up your TA team if you're on that journey. But if you're a business where your hiring is up and down, and you deep down that this TA person you're going to hire is going to be laid off in 6 months' time, then don't make that hire. Use a fractional recruiter. I just think that companies need to be more honest with themselves around their hiring strategy, accept that they aren't all going to scale to 1 million headcount, and just be a bit more realistic. Because I do think that I don't think the TA market will go back to how it was. I think it will balance out. But I am seeing a much bigger need for like fractional recruiters, embedded talent companies have got a place, and also just contractors. I do think the contract model is a logical model. I've spoken to a lot of people this year about it. Obviously, I offer that as part of my service. It's a solution to that problem of, do I want to realistically hire somebody on a full-time basis, get them a LinkedIn recruiter license, stick them on a permanent contract, or do I just bring in this person to get me over this initial period of growth, and then when that growth subsides, end the contract? And it's a much more logical approach for them. So I think that the feast or famine thing is interesting. I think it will level out, but I do think that companies need to be more honest and more realistic about their hiring plans, and then, not always assume the answer is to hire a bloated TA team.
Completely agree. Really good points about fractional embedded talent. I think companies do have to look at themselves and think, is beefing up the permanent TA teams the right strategy? I think just my final point on this, I remember a couple of years ago, Facebook at one point, Meta, were 20% TA, which is just bananas. And now they're probably not even 2%. Look, thank you so much, Liam. It's been great to talk. It's some really good points. And thank you for being our first guest. You should be honoured.
Privilege, yeah. I want one of those t-shirts.
Yeah, I'll get one. I'll get a mug sent out.
Yeah,
I've got some mugs. And of course, Liam, you're part of the Totally TA community that we've recently set up, which I think everyone should know about. It's a community focused on helping our fellow TA people who are looking for work. And so that's all from me. I'll leave it there, and see you next time.
Yeah, cheers. No, thank you for having me on. And also, just on that point, definitely, if anyone hasn't joined the community, get involved. It's cool. It's great for anyone who's looking to move. But also, I think as well as that, it's also a great way to just interact and engage and network with fellow TA professionals. So definitely worth checking out if you haven't signed up already. And I'll definitely send you my address for a mug.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Thank you very much for your time, Liam.
Thank you.